Good morning. My name is Norbert Goldfield. I'm the founder and executive director of Healing Across the Divides. It's a pleasure to see everybody today. And it's quite an eventful time, for sure. Um, Let me just tell you how we will proceed. Um, We will, first of all, just so everybody's aware, we are recording the session so that we can send it back to you. If you're interested, feel free to distribute it to any of your friends and colleagues. And then in addition, we'll be using it on our website and so forth. This morning, I will be making some brief introductory remarks. Then I will hand it over to our Israeli and Palestinian representatives, Veronica Viktorchuk and Nihat Fatah, and then to our communications director, Tova Reznicek. They will all make comments. They will all talk about the grantees. And then we will segue over to Kim Passy, and I will be asking her to talk a little bit about the study tour, the Medjdi study tour. We have a joint effort with
The tour that I did in March is being run again.
we're asking everybody to put themselves on mute. Thanks very much. And then we will have some concluding remarks um, from a couple other people. So this is a momentous time. It's a momentous time throughout the world. It's a momentous time in the United States. For those of you who know me a little well personally, involved quite extensively in what's going on in the United States. And I'm one of those people who feels that I must be morally engaged and engaged in a concrete way in what's going on between Israelis and Palestinians. And this is our 20th anniversary. We will, if you can figure it out, Tova, feel free to put in the chat the video that we showed at our 20th anniversary acknowledgement and expression of appreciation. And if not, I'll definitely be including it either way, the video that we showed back in July, where we had over 100 people, including our member of Congress, Jim McGovern, people came from several states to acknowledge the impact that we've made. At the end of the day, one of the things that struck me very forcefully when I was in the region back in March, towards the end of March, was that something that's very simple. And that's simple, something that's very simple is that people want to live. It sounds simple, but in fact, it's not simple in the Israeli-Palestinian war. It's not simple for many other people throughout the world, but it struck me forcefully. When I went to visit, we saw, when I was with our representatives, we went to visit 7 grantees that I could visit. I went to all that I could visit, with considering the security situation. And it was just amazing. I have to ask people to mute themselves. People to mute themselves. Ari, please mute yourself. Thank you. And it just struck me when I went to visit each of these grantees, these amazing leaders and amazing participants, and that even under these very, very difficult circumstances, people simply want to live. They want to live with their family. And you know what? They want to be left alone. So as somebody who feels that I must be engaged with this conflict, this war, this horror, is that the reality is we need to be somehow concretely involved. We need to facilitate that possibility. And that's what we've been doing in the last 20 years. So just to restate, what we do is we measurably improve the health of marginalized Israelis and Palestinians through community-based interventions. We do that by funding community groups. Later this morning, we're going to be having a meeting to decide preliminarily some of our new grantees. We had over 80 applications for new grantees, over 80 applications. We'll be able to fund approximately 4. I'm going to ask people to please mute yourself, and I will keep repeating it. Over 80 applications. So we fund community groups. We get them together when it's possible. But at a minimum, what we do is we improve the capacity of the groups, we improve the effectiveness of the leaders, and we've measurably improved the health of over 250,000 people. But we couldn't do it without all of your help. And for us to get a good sense of what's going on the ground, I'm going to now turn to our representatives and then move on to Tova Reznicek. But I'll turn it over to Veronica Viktorchuk, who will talk to us from an Israeli perspective, and then she'll turn it over to Nihat Fatah. Thank you so much to everybody joining, and I appreciate your taking over the reins, Veronica.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet you. My name is Veronica Vigdorchik. I live in Israel. I'm the Israeli representative of Healing Across the Divides. I also do energetic healing, and I'm an Arab-Jewish dialogue facilitator. And these two parts of my life gives me a lot of hope that even though we are in a very difficult and hard, violent times, people do, as Norbert said, people want peace eventually on the basic level. And it's something that is very, very possible. We just need, we can do it. I truly believe that it will happen in our lifetimes. And as more people will be involved in peace building, it will happen. So I wish us all a peaceful year, Rosh Hashanah with peace and very good energy. I hope it will happen. We have now 3 grantees that we work with. 2 of them are in the Negev with the Bedouin community, and 1 grantee in Jerusalem. Most of our grantees, all of our grantees work with women. This is something that is very important to us because we believe in women can make more impact on the community. And we do in the Negev, there are, after the 7th, we have 1 organization that is doing mental health for those women, mental resilience, I'm sorry. 1 is working with early childhood development in the unrecognized villages. We also when you come to the tour, you will see the conditions that they live, and you can see that how much they are marginalized as a community and how much it's important because they don't have any access to any services from the government in the areas that they are living. And 1 organization that is Ladat, it's in Jerusalem. They developed the reproductive rights department for East Jerusalem for Palestinian women and men that live in East Jerusalem. And this is the grantees that we have now. Now we are also, as Norbert said, in the middle of the process selection of new grantees. So I hope that it will grow bigger, even more than 2. And one of the things that I think that gives a big impact while you're in the tour, you really see the experience of how people live. It's not only a description that you read, but you feel the energy, you see the views, you see how they live, you can really be in their environment and how much our projects are impacting on the daily basis on their daily lives. And how much I think our projects are unique because we take the marginalized communities and the most that don't receive as much as opportunities and resources from the bigger organizations. So I hope to meet you all. I'm also will be a part of the tour and give you my perspective from my knowledge and the work with the grantees. And Rosh Hashanah, and it's nice to meet you all. Thank you. Nihad.
Thanks, Veronica. So my name is Nihat Fatah. I apologize. I cannot turn the video on. The bandwidth is just not that strong on the West Bank side, Palestinian side. So hi, and apologies for not being on video. But my name is Nihat Fatah, and I am a Palestinian American who's lived in Palestine now for 24 years. I have 3 boys, 2 who are in the US right now in college, and my younger son is here with me. He attends the Ramallah Friends School in Ramallah. We actually have a Ramallah Quaker meeting house too, which I always find so fascinating. And maybe we can schedule that in the tour if anyone decides to come, or we can talk with Mejdi about that. But currently we are funding 7 projects in the West Bank. We are doing a lot of work here. There is a need given, there's always a need because the military occupation has been going on for a number of years, for several decades. And so there is a need in Palestine. And so currently we have 7 groups. We have a group that's working in Jenin right now, given also the horrific conditions that they're under. We're doing work there, psychosocial, with the kids and mothers in the refugee camp. We have another group in Bethlehem, also doing psychosocial services for beneficiaries living in the camps and in Hebron also. We have another group doing diabetes prevention work, which is something that we're very excited about. We have another group that's also up in Nablus, who is doing reproductive and psychosocial health for women. And most of the women in that area live in marginalized areas. It's over in the Northern Valley, near Jericho up north. And then we also have another group working on domestic violence education. That's also in Nablus, preparing videos that they hope to share with people in that area. Also, given that the current situation is quite rough for a lot of women, because a lot of men that used to work inside Israel are no longer working and unemployed. So domestic violence is on a rise in that area. So this is a great project that's working on that. And then we're also doing work. We're also doing work on in Hebron, doing drama therapy. So that's another area that we're working with. In that area, we're working with children and mothers. So this is just an example of hopefully the many projects that you will be able to visit if you attend the study tour. It also gives you a great opportunity to see what it's like for Palestinians living under this brutal occupation. You'll see what our life is like. You'll see our checkpoints. You'll see the settlements that are being built around us and enclosing us, and making it much harder for us to travel even within our own government areas. You'll get a lay of the law of what they call Area A, B, and C. This is something that came out of Oslo, which was a really bad deal. But you'll learn a lot about what it's like to live in Palestine and to be Palestinian under this occupation. So I'm hoping that I will be also attending. And so I'm hoping that you will all consider coming and getting to know what life is like out here in Palestine. Thank you. I'm not sure who's next. Tova, I think. Is it Tova speaking?
Yeah, I am. Hi. Thanks, Nihad.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. I've met a few of you. It's good to see you and some new names here. I am the communications director of the organization. I've been with Healing Across the Divides for 12 years, and I'm an Israeli American. I've lived here about half my life. I'm in Tel Aviv, and I got back 3 days ago from my first visit outside of the Middle East in 5 years. To running to my bomb shelter with my cat, and one of the wonderful things in the organization, one of the many wonderful things that has come out of all these efforts that our supporters make possible is our relationship just amongst us as colleagues here, and that Nihad, thank you again, Nihad, reached out to me, worried that she was waking me up at 1 a.m. and miss the sirens. I didn't. It's impossible to. And as Norbert said, everybody wants to live, and most people basically want to be left alone. And Healing Across the Divides, and certainly seeing the work that we do on the ground, is my hope. It's not just my hope. It really is what's going to change our reality here for everybody that understands that nobody's really going anywhere. So we better work it out amongst ourselves, and that we are our best allies, frankly, even though it doesn't look that way, because we are destined to be neighbors forever. And the amazing work that you can see firsthand and really see how people live and hear from us personally, 3 of us, Veronica, Nihad, and myself, about reality on the ground, and why your engagement is so important for these projects that, as Veronica said, our 3 projects in Israel are all dealing with Palestinian citizens of Israel. And we are all working together on a daily basis, many of us living together, and certainly living as neighbors. And that is something that you're not going to get from a lot of the media in the US or anywhere for that matter, including here, by the way. So I hope to see you in person on the trip, and I will hand it over to Norbert.
You're muted, Norbert. Can't hear you. There you go.
I'm going to keep on trying to address one of the questions that has come up because it relates to the 3 of you, and maybe you could address it also, Kim, after the 3 people who have spoken. So just want to address the question of Ellen Coteen. And so if each of you could briefly, to the extent that you feel comfortable, in whichever way you like, if at all, this is definitely the way Healing Across the Divides operates. How is the war directly impacting you and your family? How do you assess the protests going on in Israel, and are they having any impact? And so I'll just start with you, Veronica, if you want to respond, and I'll leave it to you to hand it over to Nihad and then to Tova, and then for sure, Kim, look forward to hearing from you.
I will say that I'm very lucky that none of my immediate family and relatives were directly, physically impacted. But I do have friends and very close ones, that people that I know that were hurt, killed, and impacted. They are still evacuated. So the situation, even though that it seems in Israel a bit more normal, it's not. People are very still traumatized. and we are still in ongoing situation in the north, and we don't see anytime soon that the war is going to stop. So it's very I think trauma ongoing. It's not easy, but I must say again, for me and my family, we do keep the hope that it's going to be the last one. It has to be, because we can't continue in those cycles of violence, and there has to be a resolution. The war can't stop, and we will continue the same path. We have to have a resolution. In my opinion, the resolution should be two states, just one for the Israelis and the Palestinians, so we can continue live in sustainable peace situation. And the protest now, I think this is, again, we are hitting the very low pit of what's happening politically inside Israel. I think there is also parallels between what happened with the Constitution Revolution and the same way the government treats the people that are protesting now for the back of the hostages. And so again, it becomes everything very extremely politicized and not looking at the human level, basic necessity of the people. More division, more extreme, like ripping apart the people inside, conquer a divide, it's the same method. So inside of Israel, it's also, I feel like we are ripping apart from one another. And I hope that in one day we will have leadership that will do much more unity and also peace building inside of Israel, not only externally. So
Thank you. Nihad?
So for my family and I have to say, alhamdulillah, we're okay. We did have a lot of family members in Gaza who were able to evacuate early on and leave, but obviously their property was sustained a lot of damage and are unsure if they'll be able to return. In terms of what's happening in Palestine, on the West Bank side, so in Gaza, obviously it's the genocide, and if it hasn't affected me personally, it has definitely affected me emotionally. This is really a really hard time for Palestinians. I mean, like, again, we've been under occupation and the rule of the regime for a long time. So in terms of the harassments and the land theft and the checkpoints, that's never stopped, except that it's just increased now. There's more harassment, there's more theft. In the north, if you're reading, they are tearing up a lot of the infrastructure. And once the Palestinian Authority goes in to rebuild, the infrastructure is again destroyed. So we are definitely getting, and nothing compared to Gaza, but we are definitely in the midst of this, and the Palestinian people are also being severely, it's a severe blow to the Palestinians on the West Bank side also. We've had almost 700 people killed. And that's not to say the 150 that had been killed before October 7th by the Israeli forces or the occupation forces. So it's nice to hear Veronica and her hope. I think I try and feed off of that. For me personally, I don't necessarily see a lot of hope. Having said that, I do get some strength in our grantees and the work that they're doing and the resilience that they have, because they continue to work. They continue to show up even when the roads are damaged. They continue to show up even though they have to go around a checkpoint that's going to take them an extra hour. So I get some strength from the grantees and the work that they're doing to help the people in Palestine. So that's but it's been very difficult emotionally. There is a lot of PTSD. We hear bombs, we hear planes, we hear it all. And every time a plane goes over my head, I just know that people are dying and being killed. And so it's been quite an emotional time for me, for sure. In terms of the protests, I think Tova probably has a better take on that and what's happening in Tel Aviv. But I think that's all I have to say right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Tova?
Sure. So there's no way to we can't compare the tragedies, but one of the things about being on the ground here is that you see firsthand how utterly terrifying it is to be anywhere in this region. Even if you're sitting pretty in Tel Aviv, you're not at all. And that's something that is obviously going to impact the trajectory of how this develops. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm watching right now that Israel just started bombing Yemen again. So I'm waiting for for some response and another response and another response. And that's not speaking, of course, of all of the people and friends that are away and displaced and traumatized for all sorts of other reasons. In terms of the protests, they're happening daily. From the moment I landed and from the moment everything began with Lebanon as well, they are severely underreported both in local and international media, and therefore, in my opinion, also really weakening the reach and impact of the huge, unprecedented civil outcry here. It's not anywhere real to the level that you see it here on the ground in the US media, at least. And that's unfortunate. So I hope that answers that. And now on to Kim.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and thanks for hosting me, Norbert. So I guess I'll start with that final question that everyone was answering. I'm Israeli living in Tel Aviv. One of my childhood friends was one of the hostages that was held in Gaza for 54 days. She was returned in the ceasefire deal that was signed back in November. Her sister-in-law, unfortunately, was one of the 6 bodies of hostages that were returned a few weeks ago. And we were hoping for a better outcome there. So this past year was pretty difficult emotionally and mentally. Having young kids at home is not easy because they have schools are on and off due to shelter issues, and of course, knowing a family friend that was missing and returned, but still coping is not very easy. I was just yesterday, my friend's family, Yarden, her name is Yarden, her family invited everyone that was helping throughout to try and bring her home or get her on the list of the hostages in the deal. And they are one of the more hopeful families that I've seen. And when she returned on that deal, she did show support towards what we are doing at Majdi. So I think that that's a voice that is also not usually heard and is important. So a lot of our groups will meet hostage families and hear about their experiences, and also hear the story of what they think about the future. And I do think that it's an interesting time to hear that narrative. So going back to talk more generally about the study tours, I think that this partnership is perfect in the sense that Mejdi aims to have our travelers meet with the locals to actually get to know the people and the voices on the ground, because what you're hearing on the media, on the news, or even on social media is usually a much bigger and usually very far from us individuals that are, you know, civilians that are living here and are wanting something else than what our politicians are looking for. So meeting with grantees will show you the people on the ground and the issues that people are dealing with and the trouble that we have daily or yearly, and the way that you can contribute to helping making this place better. So I think that you will be able to leave with at least a little bit of hope and a lot of questions probably, but more understanding of how you can stay involved and how you can help. And I think that's the importance of going on this type of tour. The study tour has 2 guides throughout the trip, which is one is Israeli and one is Palestinian. That conversation or that duo also gives you an added value, because you can see that conversation is indeed possible in a respectful way, in a caring way, and even through friendship. A lot of our guides, I would say, throughout the years of Mejdi's existence, are probably the community that has been affected the most by what we do. Not necessarily the travelers, but the guides have become true friends, and are able to show a different style of conversation and dialogue. They don't always agree, definitely not in the last year. It's become more difficult to agree on everything, but they're still able to care and show empathy towards each other. And I think that that really helps and resonates when you think about the conversations that you're having back home with your families, even about political issues, or about the Middle East. I think that's in a nutshell. Norbert, do you want me to talk about anything else in specific?
Maybe, thank you very much, first of all, to everybody. And I'll just make make 2 observations, one of them somewhat political, or actually quite political. But the first thing I want to say is that I'm so impressed by our representatives and our staff that continue to work together, continue to console each other. And I think that that's a real testimony to each of the 3 of them. So I just want to thank them for their comments. Secondly, more of a political point of view, I think the undertone that you've heard so far is, at the end of the day, what's come out of this war, and this war is ongoing, is that there'll be no resolution at all unless there was a resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. So that's what this war has demonstrated. Now, after that, there are definitely different options that people have made. But what we do at Healing Across Divides, and what Mejdi does, is to introduce you and introduce the grantees to each other as much as possible, and to measurably improve the health. So we're working on from the ground on up. That's what we can do. Then I would just say, Kim, if you want to just spend a couple minutes, and then we'll answer some questions. Feel free to ask any questions that you have, but maybe you could just give us just a brief summary of how the tour operates. Obviously, as Kim will highlight, your safety is number 1, number 2, and number 3. But if you want to just make any comments about the study tour itself, in addition to the amazing food that you will eat, that always never ceases to stupefy me. So thank you very much, Kim, and then we'll
Sure.
move and answer some questions. So feel free to send some questions through the chat, or if people feel compelled that they want to say something, somehow you'll have to make yourself visible and put a hand up.
Great. So I will send a link to the webpage and you can see the itinerary there. But I will say that the trip itself is a 9-night tour. You stay overnight in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, but are visiting both Palestine and Israel. So the West Bank and Israel, Israeli grantees. And Norbert started talking about safety and security. So I will say that we had a group here a couple weeks ago, actually. They left right on time before flights started being canceled, but they were kept safe for a full week. We assessed daily. I would say maybe sometimes even throughout the day, if we can go to the places we're going to. It's not a usual tour where all you do is tour, these natural sites or religious sites. You're also having a lot of meetings with locals, and that keeps you so much safer because you're meeting people that know to tell the guides in advance if it's safe to come, if the checkpoint is open, and if it's possible. So there's always, like not one eye, but many more eyes on your itinerary that are constantly checking the situation of where you're going to visit. We're also part of the Incoming Tourism Association in Israel that helps us assess a lot of the daily itinerary. Actually, AJ, that is here, she just sent a message on the chat, but she was on a Majdi trip, so I think you can read and hear more from her. I think that a lot of the travelers, even when a bit worried before coming, once you meet both guides and they have a conversation about how we're running the trip and exactly what precautions we're taking, it's easier to feel safer throughout. And I can also say that out of our 15 years of running tours here in the region, we've never had one traveler that was affected by the conflict physically. Emotionally, for sure, everyone, but physically, no one was harmed. So we were able to learn a lot throughout the years on how to continue keeping it that way.
On that point, would I ask you, John Falk asked, what does assessing danger on the study tour involve? Maybe if you could address that right away.
Sure, yeah. First, it involves knowing what roads, it's from the smaller things, like what roads are closed, and it's not always about any IDF or anything. It's about weather, or it's about certain visits to the region, like presidents or something like that. So just knowing that the roads are open and free, knowing the time of day that we should be driving to certain places to avoid a lot of traffic, knowing that we're speaking to the locals in the village or city that we're going to visit to make sure that they know what everything is looking like. And that day, if the checkpoints are safe and open, from both sides, by the way, we get updates from the Israeli authorities, but also from Palestinian authorities and also from Palestinian locals. So it's just daily assessments of news and different resources that we have as a registered company, tourism company here. We're also able to get our buses out of big issues at checkpoints. Even if the checkpoint is closed, we're able to get the bus to get through because we are, again, have specific connections in the country.
Two things. Thank you so much, Kim.
Yeah.
2 points. One is an observation. I remember going through a checkpoint coming back into Israel from Palestine, and the one way that Majdi dealt with the issue of getting through a checkpoint quickly is that the Israeli officials wanted to question the Palestinian driver, and the Majdi tour Israeli tour guide said, well, if you want to question him, you'll have to question me too. and that sort of flustered the Israeli official, and he just said, "Yalla, just go." So within that spirit, I'd like to ask Elizabeth Kaplan to unmute. She was on one of the study tours in the last couple of years, and maybe she would like to make an observation before I answer some of the questions that have come up. And feel free to post some other questions as you like.
Well, thank you, Norbert. I have to say first to safety that, of course, it's safe. I mean, I was there in 2023, and I trusted not just Healing Across the Divide, not wanting to put their participants into harm's way, but also Mejdi Tour. And no, so it's actually very safe, and I think safer than being there on your own. The guides and the chauffeur, the driver at Mejdi are outstanding. They are so wonderful. So what you would get from the trip, really, besides being safe, you're going to be heartbroken for sure. And then it's going to be heartwarming also. And this is this juxtaposition of the two that is so incredibly enriching. You're going to come out of it with a very new perspective on the situation, because as the speaker said, seeing it from the ground, talking with the people involved, really change how you see the situation. And maybe for me, the most both, as I say, heartwarming and heartbreaking thing is that when you are on the ground and you're talking to the people and you're talking with the grantees who are making extraordinary efforts to build the capacity to have a normal life, to have healthy children or healthier children, resilient, you have such an understanding of the dignity of living. And that goes even beyond the conflict on the ground in the Middle East. That's all I want to say right now. I think Veronica and Nihad and Tova and the folks at Mejdi are living that every day. And as I said, they are extraordinary. You're also going to come out of this trip with new connections and new friends.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm going to, first of all, answer a few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over for a few minutes to board members of Healing Across the Divides, Heba Al-Zawahri and Yona Barth Rogers. But let me just answer a few questions first. Number one, is HATD able to get any help into Gaza? So that brings up an important question. So we did fund, until relatively recently, but before November 7th, an initiative on diabetes in Gaza. The program stopped before November 7th. It was finished, and then November 7th came around. The director of that program is a diabetes expert. He was able to escape from Gaza. He and his family. He's now in England. One of the untold stories is the poor treatment of Palestinians who've escaped Gaza by Egyptians, and that's a story unto itself. Unfortunately, Dr. Yunus, his sister, and her whole family were killed in Gaza. So that's a sad part. I'm still in touch with Dr. Yunus on a regular basis, trying to provide whatever kind of support that I can personally provide, separate from Healing Across the Divides. There are 3 grantees that Healing Across the Divides has that have offices in Gaza. So one of the grantees that I'm sure you would see is Palestine Sports for Life. Another grantee that for sure you would see, hopefully, but probably, is Yes Theater in Hebron. And they have offices in Gaza. Another grantee that you'll see for sure is Diabetes Palestine. They have offices in Gaza. We did an emergency campaign, and we're able to provide extra funds to each of the groups so that they could directly fund different initiatives. And we have on our Facebook Some of you might be into Facebook, some of you might not, but they're available, they're there. Just a couple, and so that's how we were able to provide some funds into Gaza. So how do the grantees connect with each other? Today, on both sides, the Palestinian and Israeli grantees do not get together today. There's no question, as Tova implied, there are increasing tensions on both sides, and Kim also alluded to this. So what we do is we get the grantees on the Palestinian side together, and we get the grantees on the Israeli side together and encourage them to work with each other. That's what we can do today. We're always trying to do what's possible. And thank you, Tova, for putting the Facebook post, the Facebook link. So with that, want to also highlight, and Yona and Tova, Yona rather, and Heba will be highlighting it. Just want to answer Kathy Levine's question. So each of our grants are anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000. What's amazing about community health, unlike acute health, which I still practice as an internal medicine, is that community health interventions are, relatively speaking, inexpensive. You can have a tremendous impact with low dollars. And so we're currently, out of the 80 applicants, we've narrowed it down to 15, I think 15 or 18 applicants who went to the full proposal stage, of which we'll fund 4, because that's what we can afford. Each grant is between 10 and 30,000. Certainly are aiming to slowly but surely increase our numbers of grantees. Within that framework, I want to highlight who's on our board of directors. They're all American. We have Jewish Americans, Arab Americans, evangelical Christians, Christians of other stripes, and just regular Americans who basically don't think about their religion. So that's what's wonderful about the Healing Across the Divides board. As my wife has said very succinctly, is that at the end of the day, I'm the lucky one to have started Healing Across Divides, because without it, I wouldn't be with you today, and I would not have met Heba and Yona. Heba El-Zawahri and Yona Barth Rogers are on our board, and we meet 3 to 4 times a year, and they have an experience that they would like to share as they slowly round up the hour. And as those of you who know me, I know there's one person who I used to work with in my 35 years of research. He knows that I like to start on time and I end on time. So I'm going to leave it to you, Heba and Yona. Thank you so much for joining the Zoom, and leave it to you to take it away.
Okay, hi, I'm Heba El-Zawahri. I am on the board. I live in the US, and last weekend, Yona and I presented at the American Academy of Family Physicians Global Health Summit, as well as WONCA, which is a combination meeting. And this is a huge organization. So AAFP is one of the biggest lobbyist groups for our political arm for medicine, and WONCA is a primary care international group, and it's around the world, and they meet almost every other month. So it was really huge that our presentation was accepted, and we presented Peace Through Health, which is the foundation of how Norbert founded Healing Across the Divide. And then we presented Healing Across the Divide, but we were very nervous that having just one of us present would be one-sided. So Yona graciously flew in for one day for the meeting to help present Healing Across the Divide. And it was very well received. I have seen other meetings where just bringing up the topic, it is not well received because it's contentious, even though if you're talking about helping people in need, people just tend to take their side and have blinded ears and blinded eyes. But Yona, did you have anything else to say about how it was received or how it went?
Yeah, just to really summarize the focus. So Heba is the reason I'm on the board. Our history, we kind of gave a brief history of how we know each other, which goes way back till right after residency. And then she was on the QI committee, where I am the chief medical officer at a community clinic in Los Angeles, and then invited me to come to the board. The organization I work for is called University Muslim Medical Association. It's the first federally qualified Muslim health clinic in the US. And then she was on the board for Healing Across the Divide. and said, let's join here again. And so it's really a nice history that Heba and I have, as well as a good friendship. And she really started the conversation around what is healing through peace and peace building through health. Talked about the World Health Organization's definition, really the historical relevance. And then I went in and really talked about what we're doing on the ground with Healing Across the Divide, what types of organizations we're funding, what types of communities, what we're doing currently in this current war. And there was just really, I've presented at different conferences before, and really the interest and the engagement of the audience was so heartwarming. And a lot of them came up to us afterwards to get our contacts, to really talk about how they might be able to get involved. People from all over the US, and also because it was Wonka internationally as well, family physicians from all over. So it was great. We didn't know how it was going to be received, so we were a little bit nervous. Yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Heba and Yona, do you want to make any final comments in terms of the organization? And if not, no worry.
Well, a lot of what came up was, how can you do more? And so we are just, also always, if you have any, it's amazing what the organizations that we fund can do with a small, what would be a small amount in the US. And so any amount of donations is tremendously appreciated. To be able to fund all of the additional needs, not all, but be able to fund even if it's 1 or 2 extra programs this year. We are so grateful. So that would be just an additional message that I have. I don't know, Heba, if you have anything else you want to say.
No, I agree. That's very encouraging, that just a dollar goes a long way. So any contribution would go a really long way. And we all feel so helpless. Even the audience felt so helpless. And days after our presentation, people were still asking me what they can do. But just being an activist, whether it's within your state or federally, and any little contribution goes a long way. So whatever anyone can do, so we don't feel helpless, because this is going to be a long war and people are suffering. Thanks so much to both of you. Thanks so much to everyone. Feel free, if you have some last questions, we have a couple minutes. It gives me even greater pleasure to even possibly end a couple of minutes earlier. But I think what you've heard today is a very good summary of the amazing work that the grantees are making. I myself gave a talk a couple, actually about 4 months ago now. It was the annual Archbishop Desmond Tutu talk at a local lecture, at a local college rather. There were 250 faculty and students there. I made sure that there was security there. These days, whenever I give a speech like this, I always make sure that there's security. People were very respectful, and I'm so happy to hear that Heba and Yona received similar treatment. It's not guaranteed at all these days. But you know what? What you've heard, and I want to hear this very clearly, that we at Healing Across the Divides are never going to give up, because we know that the answer to these issues are going to come up, just as Tova and Nihad and Veronica spoke, as to make sure that these issues have to be resolved between Israelis and Palestinians. We will do our part. I saw that Elizabeth had a hand up, and I'm going to turn to her for a last comment, and then I will wrap up very quickly.
Well, my last comment is, of course, encouraging everyone to go to the tour. But speaking of across the part that says across the divides, any tips that board members or others would have about how to reach across the divides here in America, for fundraising efforts, please contact me or Norbert, and he'll let me know, because I think that's one of the obstacles that I see here, is when it comes to supporting Healing Across the Divides, the fact that HATD works on both sides makes people a little bit squirmy. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That is an increasing challenge, but it's a challenge that we're not going to shy away from. I also want to highlight and give express thanks to all our supporters who are on the call today, on the webinar. And I also want to thank Kim Passy-Yosef for her wonderful presentation. And you really got a sense of what the study tour is about. I appreciate all the nice comments that have been coming through. It's 10:58. If there are no last questions, I'm going to stop and just say thanks. And I guess the other thing I'll say is this is our second of 3 campaigns. We always have a campaign, a fundraising campaign at Easter, Ramadan, and Passover. Our second campaign is around the Jewish New Year, and that's what we're doing right now. And then our third campaign will be at the end of the year. And Yona, I just saw your beautiful daughter, so that was wonderful. So
Excited.
I should make that appearance, because, as we all know, she is our future, right? And so thank you for making an appearance. On that note, I want to express my thanks to everybody, and we will be in touch. And thanks for attending this webinar. Bye-bye now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.